All right, it looks like we're live. And hey, everyone, welcome to Lee TV. We're going to enjoy today's discussion as I have two distinguished military officers, Lieutenant Colonel Bernard House and Lieutenant Colonel Natasha Clark. And we're going to talk about breaking past the stigma of things. How do we change the stigma? How do we change our mindset about certain things, certain topics that may be affecting our lives? So I'm going to, play the quick intro, then I'm going to come back and just kind of give a premise of our discussion today. So I hope that you are going to enjoy today's discussion, and here we go. And so today we're going to have like a kind of a different format of how I normally do things. Typically, I will have my guests come on and they will give their presentations, etc. Today, we're just going to have candid conversation. The candid conversations are going to be, the topics are going to be placed on the screen itself. And I welcome as many comments and discussions. And if you have a different point of view, or if you want to share your mindset about something, go ahead and type it into the comment section in whatever platform you're using, whether it be YouTube or Facebook. So let's see, without further ado, I'd like to add on to our discussion panel, Colonel House and Colonel Clark. How you doing, team?
Doing great. How you doing?
Hey,
I'm doing great. Hey, good morning, ma'am. Yes. Good morning. You're all the way in Korea, and I appreciate you getting up early this morning and talking with me about these very topics that we've got going on. And these are topics that are things that people should be paying attention to. It's things that typically we kind of want to not really put out there because we're fearing, reprisal and all those different things. And I'm hoping that folks participate in the discussion today and really see that it's going to be straight to the point. It's going to be honest. And I encourage you all to participate in it. So before we even get into the discussion part of things, I'd like to have you both go ahead and introduce yourselves to the people that's participating and viewing what we've got going on today. You go ahead first, Colonel House.
Okay. First, let me start off by thanking you for having us here. And then let me say congratulations to Natasha. She just changed out of command last week, the largest battalion in Korea. Did an outstanding job. So congratulations on that. Bernard House, I think most people know me. This is my second time being on here with you, Otis, so I appreciate it. University of Arkansas at Pine Bluff graduate. So yes, I'm a graduate of an HBCU, which I know we're going to talk about that a little further along. Field artillery officer, did battalion command at Fort Drum, New York, and now I'm here at Fort Knox. Actually, today was my last day at HRC. Starting in the next couple of weeks, I'll be joining 5th Corps here at Fort Knox also. So again, thanks for having us on, and it's a pleasure to be sharing the stage here with Natasha Clark.
All right, ma'am. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi, good morning, good evening. Thanks again, Otis, for having me on. I've been following you for years, so thank you for this. Thank you, Bernard, for teaming up to do this endeavor. So I'm Natasha Clark, graduate of North Carolina A&T State University, Aggie Pride. So yes, definitely an HBCU. As Bernard has already stated, just finished battalion command, 27 months here in Korea, where I commanded the 194th Combat Sustainment Support Battalion. In the next couple of weeks, I'll be transitioning over to be the USFK speechwriter to General Abrams.
Wow. So let me do a quick intro of myself. I see y'all did y'all shine. Let me get my shine in too. Of course, I'm Otis Toussaint. I'm a HBCU graduate myself as well, Lincoln University of Missouri. And all three of us ironically share a certain commonality. Do we know what it is? Let's put it out there so that folks can be aware of what we've got going on. Yeah. So all three of us were members of Blue and White Family, Zeta Phi Beta Sorority Incorporated, and Phi Beta Sigma Fraternity Incorporated. We had the opportunity to share, certain ideals of, brotherhood, scholarship service, final womanhood, of course, Zeta Phi Beta. And all three of us, we have, a lot of time in military experience. And I wanted to obviously have the opportunity today for us to just come and talk about certain topics that I think a lot of folks will take some, really good focus in, as far as, these are important things that need to be discussed that necessarily is not always out there. So let me ask, what was the motivation of having today's discussion?
Okay, if I can, I'll start off here, and I'm glad we all three, and I knew this because we got graduates. So there's some certain topics that we have been discussing, in private, that I think we need to, we put it on the air, put it on the platform, and kind of like you're saying, this is our opinion. Bernard, Natasha, and Otis, this is our opinion, our discussion. So if somebody you disagree, is fine, but I think it's a way for people to kind of learn and understand. Because there's a stigma attached to a lot of things we do within the military. And when you always hear, oh, this happened many years ago, I don't personally think that's a good thing to say. If you were having certain discussions 20, 30 years ago, that means somewhere along the line we failed. So now that it's opened back up, and we're having these candid conversations at every level, we might as well address everything. So, Natasha.
Yes, I couldn't agree more. The unfortunate incidents that have occurred, definitely in the States, especially with George Floyd, and then at the civil unrest that has occurred, what it did was, for me, I began to see where it opened a door. So the door had been cracked and is now wide open. And now here in the military, we're having these open and candid, uncomfortable conversations in terms of race, which has now in turn led into how we perform, and we're beginning to see gender, religion, nationality. We're looking at all of that now, and it's becoming prevalent. And for some, especially for me, I have said that my perception has always been my reality. And so having the opportunity now to be able to openly talk about it, hopefully without retribution, is good. It's comforting. It's a little scary at times, but it is good, and we need to do that. And so thank you for letting us do this here on today.
Okay.
Otis, if I can add one more thing, I'm kind of going to state something that's obvious here. You got an African-American HBCU graduate female that just completed battalion command. You got an African male combat arms HBCU graduate that successfully completed battalion command. So, it's not to say that we cannot make it, because we can. Okay, so it's important for people to see us in front of the camera talking about, not just patting ourselves on the back because we did battalion command, but kind of sharing some of the lessons learned and some of the things that happened to us along the way. So this doesn't happen to, I know Second Lieutenant Sunday's out there listening. We don't want Second Lieutenant Sunday to be having racial conversations 20 years from now when she's commanding a battalion. Okay, so that's kind of the other reason for us being here today.
Okay. I would say I would definitely agree with that. Conversations that were occurring 20, 30 years ago, we should not basically be wasting our time on those same types of conversations. We should have been past that. We should have been, doing progressive things that, further the fighting force of our militaries. We shouldn't be focusing on distractions like race, in my opinion. But these are obviously necessary conversations that we're going to have right now. And let's go ahead and jump into it. So the first topic that I'd like to put on there today are HBCUs. So let's go ahead and start with that. HBCUs, why did we choose HBCU as a topic of discussion today? And what I'll do is I'll go ahead and give you both the page while I jump off of the page itself. Go ahead and let's talk about that.
Okay. If you want to start off,
I wanted to go to an HBCU, but initially, and I'll be honest, I wanted to go to West Point. I completed junior ROTC while I was in high school. I was one of the top cadets while I was there, and throughout that time frame, my PMS at the time said, "Hey, your SAT scores are too low, and so I'm not going to do a letter of recommendation for you." It was disheartening. I had a lot of people in the community that said that didn't even seem right, because everyone knew how hard I had worked to get to that point. And so the person that was chosen was the class valedictorian, who until ended up not even completing the first semester of the course at West Point. So that's $250,000 gone. And so I had to find a way to get to school. And so I began to look at the HBCUs. I looked at North Carolina A&T, Winston-Salem State, Spelman, Tuskegee University, and I landed in on North Carolina A&T. And I will tell you, had I not gone to North Carolina A&T, I probably would not have learned about the very topic that we're talking about today, because I had those PMSs and those MS3, MS4 instructors that was teaching us early on. Lieutenant Colonel retired Burnett, first class retired Fleming, Master Sergeant McFarland. Those guys really brought us in, and they began to teach us that, hey, there is going to be a stigma out there, but you don't have to set yourself apart. You can be as much a part of the team as anybody else, but we're going to teach you how to do that. And so, Colonel Burnett, he was an infantryman, so it wasn't like, I'm combat sustainment support. I'm a service support officer by trade. I'm a logistician. But, so that stigma of, he was just a support guy, that wasn't there. We had all of that. And so, I'm grateful that I had that opportunity. I learned about my culture. I don't know if I would have gotten that at another school, but I'm just very thankful for that. And so I wouldn't take that back for anything. So Aggie pride for anyone that's watching and that's an Aggie.
Got it. And what about you, Colonel House? Go ahead and share your experience.
Okay, so a little story. So I didn't plan on going to college at all, but I had a demanding mother that decided, one of her sons was going to college, and by me being the baby son, I guess it fell on me. So once I got back and I actually took the ACT, I was kind of a nerd in school, so I had really good grades. I did really well on the ACT. So the offers flowed in, and I did. I kind of had to shuffle through schools, from, I considered West Point also. I considered some of the other military institutions, University of Arkansas at Fayetteville, which everybody knows. But once I kind of peeled back and did the study, and I did a tour of University of Arkansas, Pine Bluff, UAPB, met the people, kind of talked, learned the history, kind of learned, what they were going to teach us about our culture. It was a no-brainer, that was the school that I actually wanted to go to. And, and then on top of that, I'll jump right into this. You do the research on these institutions, and I know some of the time people think, hey, you don't get the same quality of education that you do at other universities. And I would say I think I graduated with a pretty good education because, it's good instructors there, and you apply yourself, and, you're going to learn just as much as your peers anywhere else. Kind of like Natasha, my PMS there, assistant PMS there was a Black armor officer. So when I got commissioned, armor was my first choice. I don't think anybody knows that armor was my first choice. They passed me over and I got artillery, but it turned out to be okay. But again, best experience I can ask for. If I had to go back in time, I would still, to this day, choose to go to an HBCU.
So regarding the stigma with HBCUs, what is there exactly a stigma that's attached to it? I hope not. All three of us, getting a chance to attend HBCUs, we had the experience of, it felt like home. It felt like being around people that look like you, may have similar traits to you, may have, certain cultural similarities with you, always helps the experience that wherever you go. So were there any sort of stigmas that were attached to you once you got into active duty? If anyone could jump into that, and let's talk about it. Who wants to go first?
Yeah, let me give you, if I can,
Right.
let me give you this. So, I graduated in December of 97. On my way out the doors, congratulations, Lieutenant. But it was also hey, you're going to be behind your peers because you're coming from an HBCU and you're commissioned as an African-American into a combat arms. Once I showed up in Germany, honestly, I didn't feel I was behind anybody. I showed up, with a West Point peer and a peer from another military institution. And the bottom line, all three of us went in there and performed. And I was sharing this story with one of my mentors. He always, he kind of debates me on stuff, which is good. We have healthy discussions. But you know, he made a good point. Sometimes when you look at these rosters and you see, you know, a West Point lieutenant coming in versus an HBCU lieutenant coming in, you can automatically think that that West Point person is more competent than the HBCU because of these stigmas that we're tied to our cadets and saying, hey, you're already behind your peers. You know, whether it's the education level you receive, your level of ability to communicate, you name it. But my point is, you know, even as a commander, a lieutenant shows up. When I showed up in '98, I showed up and I had to perform. It didn't matter what my name was or what school I came from. At that point is when you start performing and you start building your reputation, and that's what's going to open doors for you. So, yes, you know, still today, there's a stigma attached. And, you know, people might say, what difference does it make? Show up and perform and you'll overcome it. But then again, that's the guy on the other end looking at the roster of people coming in. If you got this in your mind that, you know, Lieutenant House coming from the University of Arkansas at Pine Bluff is not as competent as Lieutenant X coming from West Point, you know, who are you going to give the opportunity to? So I think this is one of the things we definitely got to change. And, you know, we got to make people understand that we're now putting quality PMSs in these HBCUs, and they're producing quality officers.
Got it. And what about you, Tasha?
So I would say there is still a stigma. One of the things that I knew that was instilled in me was, hey, there are certain things you got to be able to do. You have to be able to speak, you know, be able to give a briefing. You need to be able to write and, you know, be able to articulate yourself. Physical fitness, that was really big. And so for me showing up in Germany, I showed up in 2002. And, you know, I was a 300 plus PT person, always, never went below that. And I felt like that was like my way in, because people would see you as, oh, you assumed I didn't go to an HBCU, that I went to another school. That was my shoe in. You kind of want to cater to people that look like you coming from an HBCU. When you go to Germany, it's not that many. I think there were like 5 of us. And we were all spread out amongst the country. It wasn't like we were all in that same battalion or that same brigade. And so, you know, I had to pretty much try and figure out, how am I going to interact with people that don't look like me and still try and stay above water. And it wasn't easy. It wasn't easy. I look at the officers that came in when I was sitting in battalion command. And I would sit there and just, it's a natural habit. I want to see where everyone's coming from. I didn't even get that many HBC graduates. Maybe I had a total of 10. Out of the 27 months I sat in command, and I had anywhere from 35 to 45 lieutenants at any given time. I didn't have that many HBC graduates.
Got it. So there are a few comments that are coming in. I'd like to share some of the comments already regarding our topic that we're speaking about today. And let's see, we had from Miss Kelechi Okoro. She said there is still a stigma attached to HBCU officers. I would agree with that. As an HBCU officer going into, heck, I remember going to camp and they looked at you like they weren't expecting you to succeed through camp. And, you know, it's a heck of a thing when you shine and you show them that, hey, I am, just because I went to a historically Black college or university doesn't mean that I'm lesser than, et cetera. By the way, shout out to Lincoln University ROTC program. Had a great time there and all of that. So I see a lot of comments on the timeline already that's talking about, you know, I guess tagging different folks. We've got one from Mr. Chris Spence, and he is a civilian. And he says, Otis, the microcosm of society will manifest in every institution, even military, including racism. You know, that's interesting. I would say to a degree, when you're in an HBCU, you're kind of somewhat kind of protected really from the general racism that society loves to label people of color with. What's your opinion? I see faces, I see reactions. Who wants to jump on that first? And I'll give you the solo screen.
I don't know, because at A&T, I will tell you, I wasn't. And I don't know, because A&T has a lot of rich history, right? Jesse Jackson, graduate of North Carolina A&T State University. We had the World War IV, you know, from the sit-in. I just don't think we were shielded from it. And so if anything, the awareness was brought to us. And so when you talk about camp, when I showed up at camp, I already knew what I had to go in with. I already knew that, I have to shine. I already knew that people were going to be like, oh, HBCUs, hey, do you know how to swim? Hey, they taught us all of this stuff before we got there. We knew that we had to do water survival. We knew we had to do sticks lanes training. So I had so much history that was instilled in me at A&T. I do believe there's a generational gap where somewhere it stopped along the way. Because when I go back to my school sometimes, each year and I get that opportunity, I can see where the information is not shared the way it was shared with us back then. And that's unfortunate. And, for me, I would hope that as the administrations begin to change, and I'm talking about at the school systems, at the college itself, at the HBCU universities, that they will begin to put people back into the universities, back into the schools that understand how much we need to talk about our history, how much we need to talk about our lineage and what we can do as a society while still helping to help people of color advance in the world.
Gotcha. What about you, Colonel House?
So even I'll say, even though we say HBCUs, we know that some of these are, very diverse universities. So, it wasn't like, we were all, African Americans on the campus. There were a mixture of students that go there, including being in the ROTC program. But you got to understand, I grew up in Arkansas, so it wasn't uncommon, and this actually did happen, for me to be able to stand on my apartment balcony and watch the Ku Klux Klan walk to the Capitol and Pine Bluff or City Hall, whatever you call it, to have a protest. So I was definitely aware of that, and just kind of like what Natasha said, the school taught me everything that I need to do, not only to succeed at advanced camp, but also to show up at my first duty station and perform. So I do agree with what you said, Natasha. There is a gap, and I think. And this is something that, I was at fault at. And this is something that I think West Point does really well. They have a good alumni association that reaches back and takes care of, mentors and brings their young officers up through the rank. We as HBCU graduates got to do that. We got to carve out the time to do things like we're doing right now. Set up a VTC back with the University of Arkansas at Pine Bluff. Let them bring in cadets. And then we can educate them and fill them in on reality in the military. They'll hear from their PMS, but they'll actually hear from somebody within the rank. So I guess that's kind of my challenge to everybody that's sitting out there as HBCU graduates. You're not reaching back to your university, even if you can't travel back there now. So much technology you can do, an LPD or something to help develop our cadets.
Okay.
I will say that South Carolina State, I got to give them their props to Bulldog Battalion, even though we're number one in the MEAC, A&P is. I will say that South Carolina State does a really good job of reaching back when it comes to the alumni association in terms of ROTC. They do a really good job of that, and Virginia State does too as well.
Gotcha. So we got some more comments coming in. I'll go ahead and share them. The comment comes in from Mr. Fred Baskin. What's going on, sir? He said, we identify that there is a stigma associated with being from an HBCU. What are some steps that either of you would recommend for a new officer on how to overcome them?
So I would say now, you need to plug in with somebody now. Like Bernard said, for those of you that graduated from an HBCU, whether you're still serving, retired, you're doing something else, plug back into that university with that school. The most disheartening thing for me was probably about 5 or 6 years ago when I reached out to the PMS and said, hey, I want to come back because, normally I come back and I want to talk to the students, and I was told I couldn't for whatever the reason was. There should be, at no time should an alumni be denied the opportunity to go back to speak to that department about any, whatever is going on. So allow those cadets now, the MS3, MS4 year, to tie into someone, captain and below, right? Because when you start trying to tie them in with people that are more senior, it gets lost in the shuffle. And so when I find out someone's graduating from North Carolina A&T now, I'm trying to link them in with a lieutenant, a captain, because their experiences are going to be different. My experience as a lieutenant is vastly different than experiences from someone that's graduating now. So tie in now.
Okay. And what about you, sir? You got an opinion on this?
Yeah, I do. No, I agree 100% with what Natasha just said. But let me flip the script a little bit. Also, we got to change the statement from the senior levels. Okay, the people who are making the decision on where officers are getting placed and the opportunities they're getting placed into, we got to stop with the statements like, hey, West Point's gonna be more confident in HBCU. Okay, you coming from West Point, you coming from HBCU, slate people fairly and let them perform. If they don't perform up to standard, whether you from West Point or the University of Arkansas, Pine Bluff, you don't perform to standard, and you counsel and develop, and they're still not up to par. You had a candid conversation, they move on, and you move them out of position. If they perform well, you open up more doors for them. So I think it's a cultural change across the institution that we gotta stop, and we gotta make it fair and remove some of these statements that are getting lodged in people's heads that are causing this disadvantage.
Gotcha. These are all excellent points. I've got another question. It looks like a comment here. HBCU officers arrive not expected to perform, but it is promising when you learn the way of the Army and plug it in to good mentors and sponsors as early as possible in your career. I think that goes with anything, not just officership, but if you're moving and transitioning to a new country, if you're moving and transitioning to a new job, having a great mentor and someone who has your best interest in heart is absolutely key. That's something that worked for me in my time. It's something that I do for others. And I'm sure it's something that you both agree with. And all right, so I know we've been harping on the HBCUs, and there's a lot of questions on here, but we have other topics that we actually want to tie in to also. So I love the comments. Go ahead, sir.
Let me say one more thing that we close out.
Okay, go ahead. Share with us.
You mentioned mentorship, and Dwayne Wagner did a good bit on your thing about reaching across and getting somebody who don't look like you as a mentor. So again, for everybody who's watching who did not graduate from the HBCU, whether you're at West Point, other institution, don't matter. It's okay to reach down and mentor, that person, whether they're in your branch or just somebody coming to your organization and you think they fit your mentee profile. Just do it, okay? And we all going to learn from each other.
Excellent. Do you want to quickly harp in on that there, ma'am?
Oh, no, I agree. And that's something that for me, I had to learn. I learned later on. So I was a total opposite. I wanted mentors that looked like me, right? That went to an HBCU, part of the same organizations. Did not learn until I was a field grade, a major, that, hey, you probably need to expand your portfolio. Portfolio being the people that you're putting in your circle of trust, the people that you have providing you the advice, whether good or bad, whether you want to hear it or not. So do it now. If you are just starting off now, do it now. If you haven't done it and you're already in your career, go ahead and do it now.
Speaking of mentorship, and speaking about expanding your portfolio, I remember as a junior, I was a medical service officer, and so I have a degree in psychology, and so I thought that my career would be running and going with social sciences and focusing on those different things, and reality hit, and they said, "Hey, you've got to medically retire out the military," and so I had to find a new career. I had to find a means of what is going to be my second play. And who jumped in and served as a mentor for me in my last year as an officer, but your husband, Colonel Clark. And he allowed me to actually start learning how to be a public affairs officer. I was like, public affairs, what's that all about? I already like to do photography and stuff. Okay, what's it all about? And so he gave me the opportunity to come and jump in his shop and actually work with his team. And it allowed me to expand my portfolio, which now has allowed me to continue to serve. So mentors, they come sometimes at a time where you least expect it, but most need it. So shout out to him. And mentorship is one of the topics also that we're supposed to discuss. So I'm not going to go into the mentorship tab, but I will say I would like to go into these are the now very subjective and objective things that very much so a lot of military folks do harp on, and they are evaluations. Yes, some of us may feel like, okay, this is a necessary evil. Some of us may have 15 to 16 evaluations they got to close out before they leave. Some of us may have things that, oh, why is it that I have to write this way? What are some of the stigmas regarding evaluations? Who wants to jump in and actually have that conversation first?
I'm gonna jump in on that. So
go ahead, man.
Evaluations. So I have not, for me personally, I have not always had the best evaluations. I don't know. So I think some people assume I did based off of assignments that I may have had, but I have not had this perfect file. It's about performance. However, if I had to say one thing that I learned from someone that does not look like me now, and he's kind of a quasi-mentor, if you will, because he was my old boss some years ago. He said, you got to tell your own story, because I had no idea what you were doing. Mm-hmm. You got to be able to do that. If you're not keeping up with what you're doing and you're not telling your story throughout the time frame that you're being evaluated, you may hit a roadblock when it comes to the timing for getting that block check. And now you got to be able to have that candid discussion. And I know we'll talk about that shortly. The one thing is you need to know what the evaluations need to say. Some people don't even know what the evaluations need to say. I like to bring people in. If you ask me to do a file assessment on you, or you ask me, what should this evaluation look like, I will tell you. The 4 things that need to be in there, we need to talk about the ESP and enumeration, schooling, next level, and that potential. What does the rater need to say? They talk about the performance piece of it. Everyone is not going to get a top block. Everyone's not going to get an MQ. You got to understand that. And you have to be comfortable if you don't, because there may be something that you did not do or you needed to improve upon and you just didn't see it. And so that goes back to, it will still tie into those mentors, asking them to give you that solid feedback. What do you really think about me? Based off the information I was giving you and based off the information you were receiving from others, because I'm not certain where we're going with this right now. And I'll let Bernard jump in because I'm sure I can tie in some more with what he'll say.
Yeah,
gotcha.
And I think you hit a lot of good points there. First thing is you're right. I mean, you got to understand the system, so you got to understand what's important to go on those evals. So let me say it like this. So this is one of the things that's near and dear to my heart, and I had a lot of discussions on how I feel about the current evaluation that we use. But make no mistakes about it, performance matters. So you got to go in there and you got to perform. You got to give it 100%. And, part of like what Natasha just said, you got to make sure you're able to tell your story. I used to tell people all the time, don't work for your evaluation. You just go out and perform, do your best, compete against the standard, and you're going to be okay. And I still hold to that statement. That's true. However, I'm going to add to it. You better pay attention to the words that are being put on your evaluation. And if you don't understand the system and you don't understand what certain words mean, you might think they're great. They might be sending some kind of signal to the board that you're not so great. And that's where it comes into play, that you need to send it to somebody who understands the system, who can sit down and explain it to you, just like Natasha said, can walk you through the ESPN, can walk that actually sit on the board, that can say, hey, if this evaluation comes up on the board, this is what it's telling me. Because too often, and it's happened a lot with the company grade officers, especially. Too often, it looks great. It has a lot of little fluffy words in it that make you sound like, the next Colin Powell, when actually, it'll be that evaluation that's gonna stop you from getting promoted. So again, I'm not taking anything away from performance. I'm not telling anybody, you're right. You got to go out and you got to do your 100%. Don't work for, an evaluation. You're working for the better of the organization, the unit. But when it comes down to an evaluation, you got to make sure you pay close attention to the words that are going on that eval.
Okay.
Yeah.
Excellent comment. Excellent post.
I want to jump in too, and be prepared for the conversation if the eval is not what you think it needs to be. So I know when I write, I'm not putting a bunch of fluff words, and I say that up front when I'm doing my initial counseling, when I'm doing asthma checks. I'm just not going to do it. I'm going to bottom line up front it. Because number one, having the opportunity to have set boards, I already know you just don't have a lot of time to do a whole lot of reading. And so you just got to be meticulous, and you got to state exactly what you want the board to see to either progress that person to the next level, that next schooling, for CGSC or whatever, and move on.
Yeah. Hey, let me add one more thing, because I'm not just going to pick on the company grade officers. I'm going to go for the seniors also. They can love me or hate me. But what we're failing with this at is counseling. Okay. And Natasha's right. You got to be prepared for the conversation. And I'm still in Colonel Wagner's words, because he tells me this all the time. You're not as good as you think you are, but I am as good as I think I am. You don't ever tell me my shortfalls. So if we continue to not do counselings, and we continue to make evaluations a surprise, and we're going to continue to email them and have people to sign them versus sitting down doing OER counseling like we're supposed to do, we're failing to develop the next generation. I don't care if you got an MQ. I don't care if you're the number one officer in the battalion. There's still, I guarantee you, there's something that you can sit down and have a conversation about that'll help develop that officer. So, seniors, I got it. Everybody's calendar's busy. Been there, done that, got the t-shirt. Yeah. But you got to make time for what's critical, important also. You make time to go to the motor pool, take care of our equipment in the motor pool. You can make time to take care of our soldiers and our junior leaders.
And
excellent point.
Because I got to talk on counseling. I'm a big advocate on counseling. Number one, I put it on my calendar to make sure that I don't forget, especially people that I rate. So I gotta, because short-term memory is awful. But the other big thing is, just like Bernard said, hey, we got to go to the motor pool. Hey, we're going to walk and talk. That's counseling time. This is your counseling. You take advantage of the opportunities, because you may not have the time to sit down in the office and let's sit down and talk. So I took advantage of those opportunities to walk and talk, and we're doing counseling. Hey, this is an asthma check. Hey, let's talk. We're going to get it in, because I do not want you at the end of the day to not understand where you're sitting, because that is a painful feeling to be there. I've been at that point. It's very painful when you think you've done everything you're supposed to do, because no one is telling you you're not doing well. Mm-hmm. Get to the end to be told, no, you really didn't do well. Well, I wasn't counseled to say I wouldn't either, right? So
yeah, and we're gonna delve into this conversation next. But imagine, Natasha and I, complete candor, I've been in the same situation, and you can imagine, as two lieutenant colonels trying to have this candid conversation with your senior rater. How do you think a lieutenant or a captain is feeling, trying to have a conversation to defend yourself? And complete candor. I'm not a fan of the current evaluation. It's way too subjective. And I know if Colonel Wagner's watching, he's probably turned over in his chair. We're gonna have coffee when I get to level.
You're gonna cause me to have coffee.
Yeah, he's gonna call me after this, Bernard. But no, and I got me and him had some discussions about the evaluation, and he had some great points. But talking to General Calloway about it, this is on the Army's radar also. Because sometimes you'll get senior raters. I'm your senior rater. What I put on there, and that's my opinion of your potential to go to the next level. Technically, I don't have to sit down and defend anything I write on that paper, because this is based on my observation, whatever feedback I get from your rater, if I'm going to take it. This is what Bernard House says. So I don't have to sit down and talk to Natasha and say, and you coming in and you showing me all this stuff. Well, Natasha, I'm not going to change it because this is how I feel. And the evaluation doesn't say I have to change it. So you can present every fact in the world to say you did all these great things, which say that, you should be at the next level. Doesn't matter. So I know we're going to talk about candid conversation, so I'll stop there.
It's coming. I got some more comments. I got questions now for
I'll say
evaluation.
This, and I'll stop. That's why counseling is so important. And if we continue to blow it off, we're going to continue to get to this point, and we're going to continue to lose a lot of quality officers, because people are out there working really, really hard. And then they get to this point and they see this mediocre evaluation. And guess what they say? I can go work at IBM, Amazon, anywhere else, and I don't have to take this, and I can make more money.
I will ask one favor, Colonel House. Can you repeat that one line again that I think someone said hallelujah in the comment section. They said, I think you had said, you are not as good as you think you are, but.
Yeah. So I stole that one from Dwayne Wagner. He always tells me, he said, hey, and he always tells everybody, not just me, you're not as good as you think you are. Yeah. But and this is Bernard House saying, I am as good as you think I am. You don't tell me I'm not. And that's all of us, right?
Yeah.
It's all of us. Yeah. If I'm performing and everything, the train is moving, and I'm meeting my mission, and nobody on the left or right, and I'm in the commander's intent, and nobody on the left or right step, not doing anything wrong. Guess what? I'm just that good.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a human being. I'm just that good. That might sound arrogant, but it is what it is. I'm just that good. This is why counseling is so important.
Mm-hmm.
And Natasha's right. It doesn't always have to be sitting across the table, right? You can do PT together. You can go to the motor pool together. You can just have lunch together. It doesn't matter. There's so many avenues that you can share some feedback to a person that can help them, especially if they out, if they're shooting out using artillery term. If they're shooting out, you need a way to help them, get back on the right azimuth of deflection.
Gotcha. All right, so let's go ahead and put up some of the comments that I see on here. One comment said, great point on evaluations. Your boss needs to know what you're doing, and his boss needs to know also. I would say that as a civilian, I make sure that I don't like flexing about what I do. I just let my work talk for itself, but I like having those candid conversations, letting them know, hey, I did this. I got interviewed with this person. I'm doing the things above and beyond what my actual job description is. And I like doing that.
But you got to. You have to. And I was the same way. And I think we probably all were the same way. Hey, you don't have to tell them what you're doing. Your work will speak for itself. No, you need to tell them, because you will get to the end assuming that you've done all these things and that they knew, or they probably did know, but I mean, somebody got to tell the story. Either you want to write the story or you're going to let them write the story.
Correct. You're right. Here's a question. How can we teach evaluation techniques earlier? Most learn to write based on what was written by their bosses, and before they realize that they are now expected to write for others. And if they had evals, then they would continue that line of writing / thinking. Good question by Colonel Dewan Lee.
So there should be some, I know there are OPDs out there. People are doing them, OPDs. I know I did a lot of them. Get some mentors to say, hey, what does my eval need to look like? Number one, get in, you can go on HRC's website. They got a whole file on the what the OER system looks like, how to write. There are books out there for writing evals. And then start just reaching out to different people. People are available and they want to help. You have some people that say they're available and they don't. They're not really there. But there are some people that are out there that want to help.
And that's a simulator. Yeah, you're right. HRC has a lot of stuff on their website. If you're learning how to write an evaluation, there's nothing wrong with sending it over to somebody serving here at HRC, because they see thousands of evaluations that come through, and then mentors. It's not only with your evaluation, but if you're rating, and it's really easy to rate number 1 and number 5. If you're rating 1 to 5. It gets really tricky when you're rating the ones in the middle. So it's nothing wrong with, sharing the verbiage. You don't have to share the officer's personal information, but sharing the verbiage and what you're trying to communicate with a mentor. And like I said, somebody who's actually set on a board or something like that, and say, hey, this is where I'm going to rate one of my commanders or one of my staff officers. So there's a lot of opportunities out there.
All right. So the next one kind of connects with HRC. And the question is, will you talk about file assessments from HRC? Some officers may not realize that they are top, middle, bottom, or middle. File assessments.
Yeah, it's not really much. I don't know much to talk about. I'll defer to Natasha, but you can reach out to the talent managers here, or your branch managers, what they call them, and just kind of ask, hey, can you, do an assessment, look at my evaluation based on what you're seeing here at HRC. And naturally they have some metrics here that they can tell you if you top, middle, or bottom, and that'll kind of give you the gauge. It also you can also have a conversation with them as to based on where you sitting at, naturally promotion potential, but also what doors are going to open up for you for next assignments, or these broadened assignments, joint assignments, whatever we're calling it at this point.
Yeah, it's the same thing, and there are so many different. Again, there are tools out there. I know Brigadier General Retired Dix used to have this one LPD that he used to host. He did a lot, and it talked about the different file assessments. And so you could literally take your evaluations and plug them in based off the verbiage and the comments to kind of see for yourself. But just call your assignments officer and say, hey, can you give me an assessment of where I'm sitting right now amongst my peers?
Okay. All right. I think those answers were sufficient enough. We have some more comments coming in. Ooh-wee. So let's go ahead and share some of the comments before we jump into the next topic. Someone said, Ms. Tanisha Norris, she said, love it. Counsel everyone regardless of block check. Let's see. We've got one here from this Facebook user asking, do you think as an officer, you should I would think it's probably meant to say self-evaluate?
Or self-assessment. If they're talking self-assessment, absolutely. I mean, some people do self-assessment daily. You know, it's wherever it perfectly fits for you. You know, it could be sitting down, meditating after your PT in the morning time, just kind of reflecting on things, or it can be a more formal process that you do monthly, you know, where you're actually pulling input from subordinates, you know, peers or seniors, and kind of evaluating yourself. But absolutely. I mean, like I said, I wholeheartedly agree with the statement. You know, you're not as good as you think you are. That's why it's important, you know, counseling and self-assessments kind of go hand in hand.
Okay.
Yeah, I do self-assessments, and then I do assessments by reaching out to some of my mentees, and I ask them, hey, what do you think? And so for me, my mentorship goes both ways. And so those self-assessments kind of help me to realize, hey, maybe I was getting too deep on someone, or maybe I was going above and beyond. Just coming out of the battalion commander, I had my command sergeant major there to kind of lean in and say, okay, what do you think? Okay, you know what? Maybe I'll change my mind. I'll go back and do it this way. You know, I had a field grades there. So self-assessment for me was almost daily. I had my husband there asking him, what do you think? It's a daily thing. You should do it.
Okay. Excellent. Excellent. So let's go ahead and post some more of the comments. Another comment said, officers need to understand, like Lieutenant Colonel Clark said, if I'm your senior rater or senior every time we talk, it's counseling. That's good. That's good. Every time we talk, it's counseling. Every time is a moment for developing or, you know, enriching that relationship that you have with that person. So always see it as an opportunity. And I fully agree with that. We've got another a question here. Do you think as an officer, you should schedule your own counselings with your rater and senior rater?
If they don't schedule it for you,
yes.
Yeah, if they are the type of leader that won't do it, you need to do it. And so unfortunately, I've had junior leaders, mentees that will say, you know, well, my boss never counseled me. I never had a chance. Okay, it's on you. You are your own advocate. It is incumbent upon you to sit down. But on the flip side of that, again, if someone is telling you you're great the whole time and you're using those opportunities with counseling moments each and every time you're talking, so it could be a catch-22. You know, I tell my officers that came in, I counseled everyone within the first 72 hours, whether I rated or senior rated them. Now, for everyone that I rated, I kept on schedule, you know, with the quarterly counselings. For those that I senior rated, hey, you need to get on my calendar. Just come schedule a time, get on my calendar so I can talk to you.
Yeah, I 100% agree with Natasha. She's spot on. If they don't schedule it, you schedule it. And, you know, I get officers sometimes say, hey, I'm trying, you know, rater, senior rater don't have the time. They constantly counseling the meeting, but hey, continue to try. But again, I guess my foot stump is, yes, it is the rated officers. You know, you got a responsibility too, to make sure you're getting counsel. But as seniors, you know, we got the greater responsibility because that's part of what we do as leaders.
Yeah, I would say one more thing with that. I would tell people, hey, catch them when they're getting ready to walk out the door. You walk with them to the vehicle. We're going to talk. Because I know how busy I used to get. But hey, you got to do what you got to do because you need to have that feedback, especially if you are one of the officers that know that you're kind of borderline. So you need to try and get in as soon as possible. Don't wait until the end.
Yep.
Excellent, excellent, excellent. So we've come to one of the topics that I think a lot of folks are, and I saw a long old comment on here regarding the discussion that we're trying to have, and that discussion is tough conversations.
Yeah.
So
Otis,
this is where
I think this is a two-part discussion. Okay, so let me make it clear. So first part about candid conversation, the way I see it, and we kind of touched on a little bit, is having these conversations when you're dealing with your evaluations. Again, because a lot of us join the Army, we you know, everybody performs well, but everybody is not a most qualified officer. So, you know, going in there to have, you know, these conversations, then being on the other side of the desk to have a conversation with the officer that you rate, it's tough to look a person in the eye and say, hey, yes, you did good, but you not as good as you think, or, you know, you really didn't perform well at all. But they have to be had. They have to be had. And then the other part of this, you know, what we're talking about tough conversation is, you know, what the chief staff has kind of charged us to do is have conversations about racism at every level. And, you know, I think for the most part, you know, we've seen numerous LPDs, a lot of memos coming out from general officers and stuff, and it's good. The door is open, but we can't let the fire go away. You know, we got to continue to have these conversations about racism within our military to make sure, you know, 20 years from now, it just doesn't die on the vine, and some lieutenant 20 years from now still having the same conversation. We're having a conversation, we're putting a plan in, we're doing some action, and we're actually making some changes based on the conversation that we're having.
And what about you, man?
Yeah, the tough conversations are going to come. It'll go back to me. I've had to have some tough conversations, especially over this last month, and being able to reach out to some senior leaders, talking to my husband, talking to Colonel retired Dwayne Wagner, definitely helped me shape how I was going to have those tough conversations. Because when you're talking about going and having a conversation with a senior leader, you want to make sure that, you know, you don't become emotionally tied to your point or your position, which can be very hard, especially when you get in a position of one that may not favor on your side. And so you need that person or those persons to kind of help guide you and get you through to the next step. I had Bernard House there helping me out. Bridget Payton was there helping me out. And so just being able to listen to a few folks just to kind of get me back on azimuth to say, okay, this is how I should tackle this. And then for me, I prayed before I went in to have that tough conversation with the senior leaders.
Yeah. And I think if I can chime in on that, Otis, so we're talking about senior leaders, because your natural instinct when you get that mediocre evaluation, that's what I'm going to call it, is anger, frustration. You know, it's like, you know, I have worked all this time for this. So you like Natasha said, you're running on, you know, all kind of emotions and stuff going on through your mind, but you got to put that to the side, and you got to kind of come up with a game plan, and you got to be prepared to listen also. But what I found that works is you make an outline. You know, you going in there and you talking facts. You're not just talking your opinion of yourself. You talking facts. You know, this is what occurred. This is when it occurred. You know, you kind of telling the story, you know, all over again in this setting. And at the end of it, you know, you got to be prepared to listen to what the person sitting on the other side of the table has to say, because they might have a different point of view. So you got to be open to listen, and then you got to be open to say, okay, you might see it their way at that point. Say, okay, you know what? I guess I wasn't as good as this at this as I thought I was. But on the other side of this, and this is where it gets really, really tricky, when the senior rater is not explaining this, you know, and it's the it is what it is kind of thing, or you had a really good file up to this point. This evaluation won't hurt you. That does you no good at all, you know. So again, I think the onus is just as much on the senior rater too. If you're going to put something on paper, especially if you put it on paper and you know for a fact it's going to hinder somebody's career, stop sugarcoating and saying this evaluation won't hurt you, because we know certain KD evaluations do hurt you. You got to have, the personal courage to sit down and look the person in the eye and tell them why you put that on that paper.
And if someone's mentoring you, and they're offering you that advice or that feedback and saying, hey, when you have this conversation, and they tell you, hey, you'll be okay. Ask them to do scenario based. What if the conversation turns this way? What is going to be your response? What if it turns this way? What is going to be your response? So ask them for both portions. Because again, when you go into that room or you go into that setting, you never know. And so that's why it's imperative, one, that you're telling your story throughout the entire time. Two, that those counselings are being done between yourself and that rater, because that rater they have a heavy percentage when it comes to how that senior rater perceives you, 9 times out of 10. And then 3, just be prepared, because the conversation can go left if you don't keep your emotions in check. Yeah. And so you want to make sure, because then we go back to that stigma again. People of color, especially Black women, are always perceived as ones that have attitude or are too emotional. No, just have the fortitude, the emotional intelligence, and just stand your ground for what's right, and not just because this is what it should be.
Yeah, and hey, let me add something else here, Otis. This might be a little touchy for everybody, but I hate to disappoint every African American officer out there. Just because you're rated by somebody who don't look like you, if you get a mediocre evaluation, it doesn't make them a racist. I'm sorry, it's only a small percentage of the people that you'll have racist issues in the Army. Sometimes you really got to sit back and take a tough look at yourself and make sure that your performance didn't lead you to the evaluation. However, kind of what we're talking about here, and I'm gonna steal Dwayne Wagner's words again. If I am as good as I think I am, and I'm not getting rated on what I have done, this is the kind of this is when you got to come up on the net and have these conversations. And Natasha's right. They can go left and right. It might not change the senior raters' mind at all, and they might not change anything on evaluations. But just from a personal standpoint, go in and have the conversations, because if you walk away and you just sign the evaluation, you will be years down the line still thinking in your mind, what did I do wrong, to get this evaluation, if I did anything wrong. So go in, and have the conversation.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Let me ask a personal question. Have you all ever had maybe a mental setback where you thought that you were doing so well and it disappointed you so much it almost rocked you off of your boat that you were sailing on? How did you kind of persevere through that?
Yeah, you want me to take?
I was gonna lead into that.
Okay, go
ahead.
Go ahead, ma'am.
First year in battalion command. So I thought that I was doing everything that was asked of me in battalion command. And when I came here to Korea, I'm logistics, so I had a CSSD. I'm assuming that I was going to do what I was supposed to do, support the maneuver elements. But I was hit with a curveball of gunnery. Never had participated in a gunnery before, done convoy live fires, deployed multiple times to OIF, OEF, so that wasn't an issue, but gunnery and understanding what platform meant and gates meant and all this stuff, it was a challenge. And that is the only thing that my senior rater could see that I could not do. And so the few touch points that I had with him in the conversations, it always circled back to gunnery. It wasn't that, hey, I provided you with all the supplies you needed. All your maintenance was fine. It was, oh, you don't know gunnery. That's just like being at Fort Bragg. And, even though, everybody in your unit is airborne, you can't go. That you're going to a coach who was an airborne unit. You're going at the 101st was an air assault unit. Coming to Korea, that was the culture at the time. It was knowing gunnery. And so here I am, getting to evaluation time, thinking, okay, that's the only thing I didn't do well, but I did everything else well. But in my boss's mind, that's the only thing that he wanted us all, regardless if we were sustainment, maneuver, whatever, he wanted us all to know that. And so I did not get a good evaluation the first time around, and it hurt me. It rocked me to my core. I had considered getting out of the military. I was trying to figure out what is the next step for me. I literally did not know what to do, how to handle the situation, who to talk to. I assumed everyone around me had all these great things, and it hurt. It hurt really, really bad. But I had to take about 3 weeks to pull myself together. Come to work with one face, drive home crying, right? Come in the house with another face. It was really, really, really tough, because here I was coming from a point where I had been progressing the entire time, so I thought, according to the Army standpoint, having all of these top assignments only to be knocked down. And so that was a dose of reality for me. I'll let Bernard chime in.
Yeah, so I definitely, so similar to Natasha, first year battalion command, and again, you're riding the wave to get you to battalion command, and you go in there, pretty confident that you know what you're doing. And my experience was, I took command early, packed up portions of my battalion, and we went to Iraq, and we did the battalion did great things over there. So when it comes time for evaluation, the evaluation didn't reflect the great things that the battalion did under my command. And then kind of to add insult to injury, the evaluation showed up from some captain in the front office up there, for my signature, not for, notice what I said, it was not for senior rater counseling, it was for my signature. And I think everybody said, hey, wow, you get over this stuff, but when you dedicate your life, and we always tell junior officers, this is our profession, this is what we're here to do. It's not a job, it's our profession. When you take that mentality for 16, 17 years at the time, and you get slapped down like that, it's a deal breaker. And I'm talking, not only does it impacted me mentally, but it also started me to, because at that point you push your family away, because your family is always your supporters. So my wife is going to pat me on the back and tell me, it's okay, you'll be okay, you've been doing all right. But you don't want to hear that stuff. You want to know, hey, why, when I physically know this evaluation stops my career right here, what did I do wrong when I took these soldiers over to Iraq and kind of brought them back? So that's why I say it's important that you have, for senior raters to sit down and have the conversations with them, with the people that you're rating. And likewise for the rated officer, if it's something on there that you don't understand, it doesn't matter. When you get your evaluation, you should have a counselor to go along with it. How do you overcome this? It's a lot of family involvement to encourage you to get you back on your feet. Kind of like Natasha, I was bummed for about a month, just kind of, wandering around after my first evaluation. And then on top of that, that led to that trickled down. It trickled down to, boards and not getting selected for kind of stuff, which kind of adds on to your mental, I guess, stability or instability, however you want to say it. So what did, in complete transparency on me, I use that great behavioral health that we have with the military. It came to a certain point where, family was there naturally to support, but I just couldn't overcome the things that had happened in my career. So I went and knocked on the door and got a therapist, and over sessions we sat down and we talked a wide range of things, and you get all these techniques and stuff that the military professionals have, the medical professionals have, to kind of help you get over this stuff. So it is 100% a mental knock when you get these evaluations, again, especially when they come as kind of a surprise. So I'll chime back again. Counseling is important, not only to the professional development of officers, but as you can see, that has something to do with the mental stability, family, et cetera, when this stuff happens.
I would almost say it's almost kind of dangerous that a bad counseling could throw you off that bad that it
Listen,
rocks almost your identity. Don't you
yes,
think it's, yeah.
It's dangerous. It's dangerous because we have been placed into a position where prior to getting to this point, because to be able to command or get to your CSL billets is a big deal because not everyone gets the opportunity to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, for me, the first year being told no, that was the first time where it was a pure blow. Because I had been riding, just going. I had already been knocked down before early on earlier as a field grade. And I had some mentors that came in and said, hey, we're gonna try and help you out. You perform and you'll be fine. And so I was performing and I got a chance to do all these great jobs, work at the Pentagon, the Joint Staff, the Army staff, be a dwarf, do all these great things. And so coming into battalion command, I already had this boost away because it's kind of like someone has already they put you on a platform, or you put yourself on this platform, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I've been placed on a platform, or I've placed myself on this platform, and now to be thrown this blow, just like that. And guess what? I still got to go and stand in front of these people every single day. I got to do this again for another year. That is tough. That's really hard to do.
Yep. Otis, I'll say, you said counseling, so I'm okay with you giving me a negative, performance, whatever you want to call it, counseling. If you tell me I'm doing something wrong and give me the opportunity to correct it, I'm okay with that. But an evaluation is a permanent thing. It ends a lot. It closes a lot of doors. Just like Natasha said, hey, putting on a fake smile every day and still go and stand, in front of 600 to 1,000 soldiers, and you still have responsibility. It's tough, and it is mentally, it's mentally draining. It really is. And hey, let me throw another shout out here again. And Natasha hit it about mentors. Okay, I'm a mentor to I think 11 now. I'm up a few because I added a few this last week. I'm with them through good and bad times. Okay, I don't care. If they're getting skipped over for boards, they're getting a bad evaluation, whatever it is, I'm there. Okay. So mentors, you got to pick up the phone sometime, reach down and say, it's okay to say, are you okay? And I heard this from a mentor of mine. It was like, hey, some people don't know what to say. That's fine. Just say something. Okay. Because a lot of, we're dealing with things sometimes. And sometimes we just looking for a divorce, and I'll dime him out because I can. Dwayne Wagner, he called me after this last Colonel's board, and actually let me rephrase it. He sent a video, which is interesting. He sent a video, and he's like, "Hey, I know things are going to be okay. I didn't call you because I want to give you time, and you can call me when you want to." But he opened up those lines of communication. And then I did email them back and say, hey, sir, message them back, say, hey, sir, I'll call you on Tuesday, whatever it was. His first question was, how are you doing? And I gave him the standard answer. Sir, I'm doing fine. He's like, no, you're not. He used some more different kind of terms. He said, you can tell me that all you want to. But then, we spent an hour just kind of talking, hey, I know this is going to happen. These are the feelings you're going to have, et cetera, et cetera. We kind of walked through that. And then we went into, hey, okay, we at this point now, what's next? Hey, sir, this is what I'm thinking in my head. And, he told me, his opinion of it. And I was like, okay, that makes sense. Great hour. That's kind of what you need. You can't be there for the guys who are, the leaders who are shooting to the top. You also got to take time when people hit those tough times. You got to be there for them also, because we're kind of looking for you. I'll be honest with you.
Gotcha.
I will tell you, I feel like over this last 2 or 3 years, people that I felt have been my mentors or have been there along the way have kind of shied away. And it could have been me too. That mental blow that first year began to open my eyes of discernment some, and then for other times it just may have been that season for certain people. I try when I mentor people. I know it was tougher sitting in the seats as a commander. And now that I'm not sitting in the seat as the commander, I have more time now. But I'm there. I will listen to people, good, bad, or indifferent. I'm with you all the way. And anyone can tell you that I won't give up on you. I will fight it to the end. I will give you the good, the bad. We'll war game it, MDMP it, whatever you want to call it. But the mentorship is truly about relationships. It's about getting to know the person. And like I said earlier, I will reach down to my mentees for asthma checks for myself as a self-assessment.
Yeah. And hey, Otis, let me throw one more thing out there before I know we're going to transition to the next topic, but let me throw one more thing out there so that people understand that it's clear. As a lieutenant colonel, former battalion commander, yes, I use the Army's behavioral health and talk to a therapist. There is nothing wrong with you going to seek help if you're having something to deal with, in your mind, you can't overcome it. The Army got the most professional therapists in the world, and I'm going to share your story across your command. They're there to help you, so utilize them. Okay, we constantly tell our junior leaders and soldiers this, but we don't take care of ourselves enough about it. So I'll throw you a plug out there. It helps. Go use them. They dare to talk. It's okay. It doesn't mean that you're anything out left field. It just means that you're trying to take care of yourself and get yourself back into the fight, into the right mind where you can be into the fight. Okay.
I will share a point. I will share a quick point. As someone who's used Army mental health, behavioral health services, and during my time when I was a junior officer, when I was junior enlisted, et cetera, I fully agree. It does help. I think my point that I was trying to bring up before when I said it's dangerous to the point where if your entire identity is based on an evaluation that someone may give you who don't necessarily even know you, especially say, for instance, you're a junior person and you want to perform so well and all you know of yourself is military, point blank and period. In my opinion, if one day you're going to leave this uniform and you still got to be who you are, and if your entire, value of yourself is based on an evaluation, if that evaluation is bad, that can mess you up for a long time. So my point is that don't tie your personal identity so much so to your career that when your career is gone, you're trying to find a new identity. Yeah, that was my point.
That's a good point. Let me expand on it for a little bit here, because if you look at my phone right now, 95% of the pictures are there with me in uniform, because I love this. This is my profession. This is what I love. This is what I've been doing for 20 plus years. So you're right. It's not that evaluation seamlessly, takes away, what you have envisioned, have you been doing for the rest of your career. I think we all know that at some point we got to come out of uniform. I think the part that at least hit me, and I can't speak for others, but it hit me is you're not going to exit the military on your terms. Okay, if my term was to do battalion command and get out of the military, I would have been perfectly fine. Or make lieutenant colonel and get out the military, I'd be perfectly fine. But when I joined in 1998, my goals were much bigger. And once you get on that path and you think you stand on that path to reach those goals that you want to achieve before you get out, and it's taken away from you, that's when it really impacts you mentally, and it impacts you heavy.
I agree.
Yeah, I would have to say, I eat, sleep, and breathe this thing called the military. And so even joining a sorority, I didn't join a sorority at ANC. I joined a sorority actually when I was here in Korea back in 2007. And so that was kind of my segue to try and find something outside of the military so I could have conversations outside of the military. And what I found is even in Zeta, I still talk military. And so for everyone that in Zeta that knows me, I'm like, well, in the military, we do it like this, up until the point where we established a whole military advisory board. That's because I'm like, hey, we should do something just like the military. So for me, I'm at a point where I don't know how to do anything besides the military. So what the Army is telling me, hey, we're done with you, I mentally cannot wrap my head around that because I'm just not prepared for that. I don't know what that's going to be like. And people say get a hobby, do these things. You're so marketable. You can do. I bet you, if I get out of the military and I was to go work for Walmart distribution center, I will find a way to tie it into the military.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. I agree. And there are some aspects regarding the military that I use still today as a civilian. I left the military 6 years ago. I'm still working for the military. People on my left and my right are military. The way how I conduct my business is very military-like. I have a certain, expectation. I do the evaluations, etc. What I am saying, and this is something that we could possibly have a part 2 on, is I want to be able to know who Otis is once that DD-214 is in my hand. I don't want to, once that day that they call you, they put that R around your name, I don't want that day to be so uncomfortable that it is mentally taxing and mentally destructive. And that's what I'm trying to implore to anyone who's participating in us. Yeah,
is important. And so if you get to the point with an evaluation, because we know that that piece of paper can make or break a person's career, potentially, it won't be so painful. I will say when I listened to Jay, as he was getting ready to transition, he was comfortable. He was like, I'm getting out because I'm ready to get out, not because the Army told me to get out. And I'm like, when am I going to get to that point? Because I'm not there yet. I'm just not there yet. But I know it's coming. And I feel like it's coming faster than I want to wrap my head around it. And these tough conversations that I'm having to have now, I never had to have these before, you know? And so it's really hard. It's hard. It is hard.
Yeah.
And it's supposed to be hard. It's not supposed to be easy.
Yeah.
Go ahead, sir. You had something you want to share?
This is my final comment on this one, but everything y'all saying is spot on, because I've had friends that, commanded with me at 10th Mountain, got the opportunity out, and they exited out of the military, out to command on their terms. Like Natasha just said, it was ready to go. I had friends who got, a bad report, realized how does a report would affect their board file, and, committed suicide. So this thing can go left or right, real quick. But I guess that's why we got a foot stamp on the importance of counseling. And then, I'll double foot stamp on the importance of the Army put a behavioral health there for a reason, and they didn't put rank on it. So before you turn and decide you're going to harm yourself or take your life, go talk to somebody.
I agree. We've got some comments here that agrees fully with what you said. Hold on. Let me put it up. It said, that's right. Say that, Bernard. Behavioral health is a great resource. Coming from Miss Tamisha Norris. We've got another comment here. It said, as leaders, we have to remember that it's not entirely about what's on your chest and more what's on the left, your heart. The tank will come off one day. Colonel Lee said, my college baseball coach always told us that every player retires. Some in the Little League, some in high school, even pros will make it into the Hall of Fame. But I would be retiring in college. The military is the same. We all will walk away. That military machine will keep driving on, in my opinion. And we've got one more comment here. It says, life is different from Lieutenant Colonel and above. Lieutenant Colonel is the rank in the Army and evaluating you on much senior positions. Senior leaders are picked from the battalion command ranks. Great discussion. Thanks for your candor. I want to say definitely thanks for the candor that's being shared here. And, we've got, I think we've kind of hit everything as far as the topics today. And, I just want to, give a final opportunity for you both to really kind of just share your points of views and maybe possibly have a part 2 to this, because I think there's so many comments on here. I was not even able to share most of them. But overall, what do you see eventually, these types of conversations occurring? And what would you say to others who may want to participate in this type of conversation? They don't necessarily have to look like us to have these candid conversations. I want to put that out there. So if you are an officer of different background, if you are a high or low enlisted person of different backgrounds, and you want to have these tough conversations. Come on and let's talk about it. But what about you and you, sir and ma'am?
So I would say, so as we're summing it up, it's not so much about just having the tough conversations, it's about taking action afterwards. And so there's that portion. As we begin to have, the door was opened with racial inequality, stronger together, whatever the terms and we're using nowadays. I began to look across my own formation and said, man, I have diversity, but not a lot of diversity in leadership positions. And so how can I fix that? And so I began to reposition people. If I could, based off of a grade skill match, of course, I began to reposition people because I wanted to take that step. I want people to please reach out and get mentorship. And I'm not saying it has to be from myself or Lieutenant Colonel House, but get mentorship. Expand your portfolio on who you want to mentor you. I used to say I had mentors with like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. I would have the ones that would give me all the good advice, the good news fairies. And then I have the ones that would give me the truth. And it's like, but you need that. Don't wait until, like me, my field grade year to find out that I need mentors that don't look like me. Mm-hmm. It's great if you have the opportunity to be able to work for people who look like you. I thought that was awesome. I never, coming from North Carolina A&T, thought that I would have had an opportunity to work for Black general officers, Black brigade commanders, battalion commanders, but I had those experiences. However, you need to understand that there are other people out there that are the majority that are sitting on the board, that are having the conversations in the room. And so you need to make sure that, your reputation, which is key for everything, pursues all of that. And so, just work on that. Make sure you maintain your character. If you feel like you've gone out of character, hey, just wind yourself back up and get back in the fight. And, I'm always available. I'm especially available now that I'm not sitting in the seat as a commander. I don't know. Well, I know how a little heavy my job is going to be. I got a couple of weeks to rest, but I'm always available if anybody wants to talk. I'm not saying that I'm going to be the best mentor for 100 people. I'm not that person. But what I will do is connect you with other people. Because I don't want to just say, oh, I'm mentoring this person, just to say I'm doing it. I want to make sure that you're getting what you need and what's going to be best for you.
Okay, so I guess in my part, I'll start off with talking to the lieutenants and captains and just telling you, you all that's out there, I am, extremely proud of you. I've seen some of the dialogue on social media. I've sat in a room with, some of our junior company grade officers who are having these candid conversations as we talk about, racism in our rank with senior leaders. And the way you're articulating yourself and some of the ideals that you're coming up with is great. So keep using your voice to do that. This is your Army just as much as it's ours. You're just as important. So I implore you to keep pushing for change. So being a voice for change. Kind of like Natasha said, I'm available. I will say I have designated people that I call my mentees. They know that I'm their mentor, but I'm always available for, coach, teaching, training, and listening and giving you some kind of advice. So, social media, email, phone call, please just give me a call and we can have a conversation. Don't suffer in silence. Just reach out to some of the seniors to go from there. And then if I can just throw one parting shot out there before I get off, is, we understand how critical the military is, how critical our performance is, how critical it is, and, to be a leader, but equally as critical that is your family. So I always tell people I don't believe in the belief that you can balance your military career and family. It's a great bullet to put on command philosophies, balance military and family. I think is something that you'll never achieve. However, saying that, make sure your family is, prioritized at the top, and you're taking the time, spending time with your family. Because like one of the colonels said, at the end of the day, everybody has to retire, and leave the military. So you want to leave to make sure that your family's still there with you. Hey, Otis, thanks for this opportunity. Natasha, thanks for allowing me to share the stage with you. It's great to see a blue and white family here doing great things.
Absolutely, absolutely.
I had to throw that out. I know everybody can say he just made a post about fraternities. It's not in my intro letter. But yeah, hey, this is great though. I really do appreciate the opportunity to talk.
Oh, definitely, definitely. I want to say thank you all for joining me on this discussion. Colonel House, you have served as a mentor of mine. You've always kind of just given me, hey, Otis, you're doing great things. And I've always given you that call and you tell me how things are. You've invited me to different folks to come and actually be part of my discussion. And it's something that I truly, appreciate from the bottom of my heart. I really do appreciate that. Ma'am, Colonel Clark, I appreciate the Clark family. You and your husband, Jay, have been absolutely wonderful to me. You've allowed me to have my second career, and y'all gave me that initial opportunity, and I've made sure to not fail you or myself or my family. And so that's a dedication to the opportunity that you all have given to me, and y'all are still giving me opportunities today. So I want to say thank you all for joining me on the discussion. I've got a few more comments on here. Let's go ahead and just share them real fast before we say bye, okay? So we've got one from another Blue and Phi member, Sergeant Major retired Keith Taylor, saying, yes, thank you. Retiring from the military was a great transition for me. It was a blessing to continue to work as a proud civilian in the DoD. I will agree with that. Shout out to him. We've got one from Miss Bridget Payton. She said, thank you so much for your honesty and sincerity. I'm glad I was invited to listen to this discussion in OPD. This definitely fed my soul. Love you so much, my beautiful sisters and brothers. Well, I appreciate you, Soro, so much. Brother Taylor said, I applaud those who transition to continue to lead. The civilian population has great leaders, but the things you learn in the Army as officers, NCOs, and soldiers are important. I fully agree. He also said, you can continue to serve and mentor. Civilians seek your guidance. I agree with that. And we have a few other comments on here that I'm not going to share because they don't really add to the discussion here. But I want to say to everyone, thank you so much for coming and participating in the discussion. I want to have a part 2 of this. If the opportunity is there, I would love to have a part 2. I'm just putting it out there, putting that energy out there. Hopefully, I see Brother Bernard is like, I don't know about that. Hey.
No, I'm okay.
You're good?
Okay,
good.
Yes.
Good. Celebrate that. So thank you so much. Hang out in the broadcast room and let me say bye to everyone. Okay, so that was a great discussion, y'all. I really enjoyed it. If you've got more comments or questions that you'd like to send in, talk to Colonel Clark or Colonel House, go ahead and inbox them on Facebook. If you're in the African American Army Officers group, send questions and comments there. If you have things that you'd like to discuss with us personally, or if you'd like to be a guest on this discussion thing that I've got going on here with Lead TV, send me a message and I'd love to have you on as a guest. And as I always say in parting, and I'm glad to be here to finish off the week again, take care of yourself, take care of your family, and take care of others. Bye now.